We got another chart, the Bitcoin supply and demand model. So you can see the squiggly line is the Bitcoin price. The blue line is the supply model, the stock to flow. And then the pink line is the demand model. It's basically taking the mobile phone S-curve and applying it here in a logarithmic fashion. You know, again, it's been really, really, really accurate. Now, one of the things that I think is important to call out, and it appears Fidelity is calling out here, is that the mobile phone S-curve adoption actually tailed off at some point. So it kind of broke away from the model itself. Will that affect price? Will that change the way that the stock to flow model works? We just don't know, right? But as you can see, it basically all the way through $100,000, that mobile phone S-curve adoption continues to overlay on top of the stock to flow, and then it starts to break off before it gets to $1 million in the stock to flow. So it's really interesting to start kind of evaluating how this stuff works. You can make an argument that actually the mobile phone S-curve adoption is going to be at a slower rate than, let's say, the Bitcoin and crypto adoption, because the Bitcoin and crypto world is being built on top of the internet, which is built on also on top of the mobile phones and the connectivity that's provided in the world. You could also argue that just there's plenty of people who already have in the developed world other financial services, and they're not going to go adopt this. Again, this is how markets get made. People are betting literally billions, if not trillions of dollars in totality on these questions. But this is data that Fidelity is showing. Last thing is the S-curve adoption. What you can see is the red is the broadband subscriptions, yellow is internet users, blue is mobile phone subscribers, then you have Bitcoin active address count, and then you have the Bitcoin address count of balances over 0. And what you see is that we are definitely watching very rapid growth, but nowhere near as deeply penetrated yet. But what you can definitely tell is there's a much steeper climb to those adoption curves, right? You're being built on top of these legacy technologies that everyone uses. And so it's something to keep paying attention to. I think Fidelity should get tons of credit for being very early to this, understanding it, doing everything from mining to providing products and services to their customers. But again, seeing $100 million price point on a chart that Fidelity is showing their customers, I think would be very surprising to people. And maybe we'll try to get Timur on here to come in and talk to us a little bit about it. But fascinating. $100 million Bitcoin price is unfathomable to.
I mean, the entire stock market is 75 trillion.
Yeah, look,
that's like 100 million is. What year did they have that hitting in?
2035.
Yeah, that's. I think the stock to flow model might be broken by then.
Too bullish?
Are you not a believer in 100 million by 2035?
100 million by 2035? No.
John?
100 million by 2035?
It's not that I don't believe in the technology or kind of that it's going to appreciate in price, but if you just look at the total worth of everything in the world, then that doesn't really seem believable.
Okay. We are going to hit $100,000 by basically the end of 2021. Believers or non-believers in that so far? Again, not financial advice, just opinions.
By the end of 2021, believer.
Believer, John?
Yes, I'm a believer.
I am also a believer that we are going to see $100,000 before the end of 2021. Now, this chart next shows that we will hit $1 million by the end of, I think, 2025. So is that a yes or a no?
He's going one by one to get you to 100 million.
No, okay. So we believe, I believe $1 million after the next halving. Do you?
Yep.
John? Ooh, okay. We were losing John a little bit. John might be tailing
right
off.
at 50%.
All right. John's tailing off on that one. Now, last one that I'm going to ask. Forget 100 million. 2029, I believe it looks like. So before 2030, $10 million of Bitcoin. So by the end of the decade, $10 million Bitcoin.
I think that's where it starts to break.
Okay. we lost John around $1 million. We lost Joe around 10 million. I'm actually a believer 10 million by the end of the decade, because that would basically be gold's market cap. By the end of the 2020s, we will have eclipsed gold's market cap. I think.
Okay, so now let's go to 100 million a coin. You'd have to pour in gold, the entire stock market, real estate, derivatives, everything you could imagine into Bitcoin's price to get it there. Plan B, hasn't he even said, or I don't know if it's a he or she, I guess, right? It's a he, right? Has he even said that, hasn't he said that the model is broken?
Not that it's broken now, but he believes that there's a chance that it could be break in the future. Like basically, it can't go up. The dollar price wouldn't matter, and everything would just be priced in Bitcoin, right? So like at some point, like it doesn't apply. But here's what I will explain to you. So you said the stock market today is 75 trillion.
Yep.
Right? The stock market before this year
It'll be more. Yeah,
was not
obviously.
70 trillion.
Of course.
Right? And so it's going to
30%
continue
less.
to grow. So by the end of the decade, do you think the stock market will be 100 trillion?